Is the housing market about to crash? Nationally, we just had the slowest 3 years of home sales since 1995. So why did home sales in Greenville jump nearly 14% this past June? I'm about to show you the real numbers, and they may just change your plan for the rest of the year. Let's take a look at what's happening and why. But before I get started, there's one question I get asked all the time. Does the national story actually match what's happening right here in the Greenville and Spartanburg markets? Today, I'm going to break down the real numbers. National, Greenville, Spartanburg, side by side, so you know exactly what's happening and what it means for you, whether you're buying, selling, or just watching the market. I'm Sue Bruns. I've been a realtor here in the Upstate since 2012, and every month I pull the actual MLS data for Greenville and Spartanburg straight from our local realtor associations, so I can give you the real numbers instead of headlines. No more fear-mongering, no hype, just what the actual data shows and what it means for your next move. So let's start at the top, because the national story is absolutely wild. In 2023, existing home sales in the U.S. dropped to 4.09 million, the slowest year since 1995. Then 2004 came, even lower, at 4.06 million. Again, the slowest since 1995. And 2025, also about 4.06 million, basically tied with 2024 for the bottom of a 30-year chart. That's 3 years in a row at the bottom. For context, a normal healthy year for the country is around 5.2 million home sales. We've been running close to 1 million homes below that pace every single year since 2023. Why? Mostly what most economics call the lock-in effect. Millions of homeowners refinanced or bought at 3% interest rates back in 2020 and 2021, and they simply don't want to sell or trade that rate for today's rates, so they're staying put, and that's kept a lot of homes off the market nationally. Now, there is a bright spot. As of this June, national sales hit a seasonally adjusted pace of 4.17 million, the highest since December of last year, and pending sales now have risen 4 months straight, so there are real signs that the freeze is starting to thaw. So here's the question I'm going to ask you. Is the Upstate frozen too? Not exactly. And that's actually the most important thing I want you to take away from this video. Greenville and Spartanburg are telling two very different stories right now, and neither one matches the national freeze exactly. Let's go take a look at the real numbers, starting with Greenville. In June, Greenville closed 1,944 sales. That is up 13.9% from a year ago. So year to date, we're up 4.6%. While the country was stuck near a 30-year low, Greenville buyers kept buying. Inventory is also up. 6,269 homes are on the market, 12% more than 1 year ago. That's good news if you're a buyer. More selection than we've had in a while. The median sales price sits at $320,000 over the last 12 months, up 1.3%. Homes are taking a bit longer to sell, 52 days on average, up from 43 a year ago. That's still fast by national standards, but it's a real shift from the multiple offers in 48 hours market we saw just a few years back. All right, now let's talk about months of supply. That's how long it would take to sell through everything on the market at the current pace. That sits at 4.1 months. Under 6 months is still technically a seller's market, but we're a long way from the 1.5 to 2 months we saw back in 2021 and 2022. Now let's take a look at Spartanburg because the story here is a little different. Closed sales in June were actually down 13.5% from a year ago, and year-to-date sales are down 4.3%. That is a real cool down compared to Greenville. The number that really jumps out at me, days on market. A year ago, homes in Spartanburg were selling in an average of 35 days. This June, it's up to 62 days. That's a 77% jump. Homes are actually sitting nearly twice as long as they were just a year ago. The upside for buyers, inventory is up 15.5%, and Spartanburg's affordability index is at 108 compared to Greenville's 98, meaning Spartanburg is genuinely more affordable relative to local incomes right now. Median price is holding basically flat at $291,900 over the last 12 months, up less than 1%. Months of supply is at 4.4 months, slightly higher than Greenville, meaning slightly more breathing room for buyers. All right, so now let's put all three side by side. Nationally, sales stuck near 30-year lows for 3 straight years. Now they're showing early signs of a thaw. Greenville, sales actually up double digits in June. Inventory growing. Prices still climbing modestly, but homes taking longer to sell than they used to. Spartanburg, sales cooling off, days on market nearly doubling, prices flat, but more affordable and giving buyers real negotiating room. The takeaway? The national housing market that you read about in the headlines isn't one market, it's hundreds of local markets. And right now, Greenville and Spartanburg are moving in 2 completely different directions. So what do I expect for the rest of 2026? First, I expect inventory to keep climbing in both markets through the fall, which means more choices and more negotiating power for buyers than we've seen in years. Second, I expect Greenville to keep seeing modest price growth, especially in the $250,000 to $500,000 range, where most of the activity is happening right now. Third, I expect Spartanburg to stay a buyer-friendly market through the rest of the year, especially in the upper price ranges where days on market has stretched the most. And fourth, nationally, if mortgage rates continue easing even slightly, I expect that 4-month streak of rising pending sales to continue, which should slowly unlock more of that lock-in effect inventory we talked about earlier. So is now the time to buy? If you've been waiting for a market with more inventory, more time to think, and more room to negotiate, this is closer to that market than I've seen in years, especially in Spartanburg. You're not going to face the same bidding wars that we saw in 2021. That said, well-priced homes in the most popular Greenville neighborhoods are still moving fast, so you still need to be prepared and pre-approved before you start touring homes. And is now the time to sell? If your home is priced right, yes. Buyers are still receiving about 98% of the list price on average in both markets, which tells me buyers are still willing to pay close to asking when a home is priced correctly. But the days of listing on Friday and having 5 offers by Monday are mostly behind us now, especially in Spartanburg, where days on market has nearly doubled. Pricing strategy matters more right now than it has in years. That's the real story, not the national headlines, but what's exactly happening on the ground in Greenville and Spartanburg today. If you want to know exactly what these numbers mean for your specific neighborhood, or for your own buying or selling timeline, message me and let's talk through it. I pull this data every single month, and I'd rather you have the real numbers than a headline. Subscribe so you don't miss next month's update, and I'll see you then.